Hello and Happy New Year everyone. Today is the 4th of January as I'm filming this, and we are now starting a brand new section about rules of survival. So rules of survival, if you don't know, is my sci-fi space horror novel that happens to be a bit of a combination between Resident Evil meets Alien. It's basically zombies in space. I do have a side of romance. This is my baby. This is Rules of Survival. In 2025, I made an entire video series of me writing this first draft and finishing it up at 91,000 words. And in 2026, I'd like to continue this series, but we're now going to start the revision vlogs. So my last video in 2025 about Rules of Survival was me in fact starting this revision vlog with just a little bit of rereading the book for myself. I got this version printed, this copy printed, and I started making handwritten notes in it. I've got a lot of little handwritten notes all throughout this manuscript, and they tend to fall in similar categories. I think a lot of them are about consistency, about putting information into a story bible so that I keep track of what I've decided. I was naming a tech item, or like what the people are wearing in terms of uniforms, or etc. So I have a lot of things that I need to keep track of and make sure that they remain consistent throughout the book. I also have some consistency things I need to keep track of in terms of the plot itself, in terms of the characters. So a lot of it has to do with me putting that information into Notion and building up a bit of a proper story bible for this. So in this first January vlog, we're gonna be doing a little bit of that. I think I need to essentially transpose my handwritten notes onto my computer and make sure that I have everything in digital format before I start revising properly. So my first step is actually gonna be using this handy tool, which is gonna be my little sticky tabs, color coding, and I'm gonna color code all of my handwritten notes in this because that's how my brain functions and I can't do it all at once. So in order to help myself, I'm gonna color code, sticky tab the entire handwritten notes of this manuscript, and then I will start with one of them. Okay, so since last time I talked to you guys, I have in fact started putting together a Notion page. So I'm taking all of these notes in my sticky tabs. I have made two new databases. One is called Unclassified Tech Notes and the other one is called Unclassified Worldbuilding Notes. And I don't know if I'm gonna stick to it that way or if I'm gonna change anything in the organization of it, but currently I'm doing a column for which chapter we're in, a column for which page. Then in the world building notes, I've split up the name of what the note is about and then text, which is just like a description of it. So for instance, one of my notes is PEC, P-E-C, and then in the text I have the Planetary Exploration Committee, or the committee who decide and approve on space exploration requests by corps to terraform a planet or to create a settlement or claim the planet, etc. And also I noted that 60% of them are majority shareholders of Vortex. And then I have a column which has multi-selects, which are basically tags, and I have put for that one that it's about space exploration, it's about Earth too, and that it's about politics. And then I have one last column that says notes, and this is if I have anything to change or I need to decide on something. So for instance, one of my notes is about the city name and there's no text there, and the select, like the tag is Earth too, and then in the notes I have determine because I need to determine the city name. I still don't have one. But I have a second table which is called doors, and that is going to be the bane of my existence with this project, is the doors and how they fucking function on the planetary set settlement. And that's where I'm going to have so many inconsistencies and things to figure out, and I need to figure out before I rewrite anything in this second draft. So my notes so far are chapter 2, page 15, and I've just quoted back exactly what I was saying in this, which is that Themis asks Lovelace, what if Kovac locked the entrance to the kitchen habitat? And then I have, in my tags column, I've named it tech aspect, and the tag is manual locking for this one. And then I have a second note for page 18, what if all the habitat doors were sealed the moment we were exposed? And the tech aspect for that is automatic locking. So I'm going to need to figure out how these work, what they can do, can't do. I know that I'm going to have some notes about transparency, opacity, like are the panels or the panes of the doors windows, are they opaque? Is the transparency level like something that can be controlled? Because at some point I decided it was, and I need to make that consistent. There's a few things I'm really concerned are going to be impacted by this, and that I'm going to be like, this can't happen because they actually can't do that with the doors, or this should be happening because the doors should have opened, or whatever it is. So yeah, I need to write down everything. It's going to take me a while. I'm currently at chapter 5, page 39, and there's one other set of notes I have been taking, but I didn't make a new page for it. It's literally just anytime I have pink tabs, they're for people wiki. And so I'm just making sure that either I've already written down in each character's page the information that I put in there, or that I'm keeping track of it if I didn't take a note of it earlier. So that's what I'm doing. This process is probably going to take me a little while longer, and I'll talk to you guys when I'm done with it, which is I'm just giving myself a lot of time on this because I don't want to jump in straight away in January. I feel like I'm taking things slowly, and this is easy to do but also really going to be useful later for me to rework any structural or plot issues. I think I first need to figure out what I've decided, what are the naming conventions, what my tech issues are, all of that. So when I'm done with this, then I will start looking at anything to do with, you know, spelling, grammar, and plot structure, anything I decided I need to add, remove. So all of the yellow and orange sticky tabs, which are at the very top, the first two. And then any consistency and continuity issues, which are the green ones at the bottom. So I'm currently taking care of these three. So the pink for people, the purple is for world building, and the blue is for tech nodes. So I'm essentially taking care of these bottom three, and then step 2 will be taking care of these and these. And even then, before step 2, I will need to make sense of these notes. Currently they're unclassified, and then I will move them around so they have a proper page if they need one, or they go into a page. So like, for instance, I have currently a page made for weapons, but I'm just going to leave any weapons note into my unclassified notes, and then I'll move that information in there. Similarly, I think I've got a page for Vortex, for instance, and I'll have some information about Vortex I'll need to move in. So currently just unclassified, and then I will classify it. So here's a quick update. Today is Saturday the 17th of January, and I have been continuously transferring my notes from this manuscript to Notion. I am halfway through. I've reached chapter 16 out of 31, page 148 out of 282. So I'm halfway through, and I've taken a lot of notes that have culminated to a lot of words on Notion. I've made a few changes since the last time I was telling you I was doing this. So first of all, my unclassified world building notes, I've changed some of my multi-select options. I realized that I needed some safety protocols, and I've got a few, such as people can't go off on world trips. People can't go on off-world trips without learning the basics, such as how to shoot. Or helmets have to stay on as they take off, then for another 10 minutes before they're free to take them off and unstrap. So that's another one. There was one where I said round trips between the shuttle and the main ship are necessary every now and then. And this is like one of the big ones I feel like feels a little bit clunky in my book at the moment. There's a lot of explanations surrounding this idea that the shuttles don't stay there. Because obviously I've decided that people don't land with their ship, the ship stays in orbit on around Panacea. And so when they arrive, they see this graveyard of ghost ships all around Panacea, and they immediately know something's gone wrong. A bunch of people have been sent over, right? But then I was like, okay, but they have to go from their ship to the planet, and so they use a shuttle, which is like a smaller ship that's inside of the bigger ship. Very Stargate Atlantis. I mean, in my head, it looks very similar to those shuttles. So did I paint myself into a corner with this? I don't know, but I kind of thought, okay, how do I explain that they don't find any shuttle in the space where they're supposed to park it, right? Like when they arrive at the planetary settlement and they're supposed to link their shuttle to the settlement in order to go in without going into the atmosphere of the planet. Well, I figured, okay, what if the shuttles have like a safety protocol system in place where they get recalled to the main mothership after a while, and people who have their comms synced to it are able to recall it if they're stranded on the planet. So I have a lot of explanations around this, and it kind of all gets info dumped, like a little bit of lore here and there around those sections where I talk about it. So I feel like I need to ease people into that information a little bit better. But that's why I find it really useful to type it all up, make sure that I have everything, and I can refer back and be like, okay, I have a bunch of information about safety protocols. What is it? I can then do a filter. So if I filter by select, I can select the safety protocols one, and it's just going to show me everything that's been tagged safety protocols. And that's really useful for when I'm actually going to put some order into this. So I'm glad that I've been doing it that way. And that was the reason why I started doing it that way. I also started taking notes on the side about what needs to happen to these. So like if it's make a decision, use somewhere else. The infection, for instance, runs black lines, you know, on the skin, you can see them and you know a person is infected. Does it go down from the wound that's on the shoulder towards the heart, or does it go up towards the brain? And then I was like, well, to be fair, the character I want this to happen to is not shirtless at that point, so you wouldn't really see what's going on. So I think it's way more interesting if it goes up towards the brain. So it also helps with some other decisions later on where I've decided this person doesn't turn as quickly because it takes longer to reach their brain, right? So that's the kind of stuff. This is the reason why I need to do more world building after the fact. The other thing I've done is obviously, so I've got those unclassified tech notes. I have a lot on bots. This is just about their existence, just to know they exist. I have a few more enhancements that I'm going to need to sort out and figure out what I want to do as well, especially for Axel, because he's the one who's got a bunch of enhancements as a ex-mercenary. And then obviously I have my doors notes, and I so far have way less than I thought I would, but to be fair, they haven't been that long on Panacea because there's the whole like ship system and everything. But yes, I thought I had a million doors notes. It's not as many so far. However, I'm only halfway through. I'm only halfway through the book. And then finally, the other thing I've been doing is adding a new page called plot fixes, because I suddenly had a brilliant idea while I was on a walk. I'm telling you, these walks are really inspiring me with this book. And it's just listening to the right music, thinking about the book, thinking about some things, and it's just your brain is just coming up with these things by itself when you're doing something else. So I had a new idea for a plot fix. It's not a plot fix, it's just a new plot idea within the same plot. Like, it's not fixing anything, it's just I'm like, I need to add this in because it's so cool. Carson knew about the graveyard of ships. Carson knew that they had been sending these teams, and it makes him into so much more of a villain, but also it makes his character arc when he decides to sacrifice himself at the very end so much more impactful and meaningful. And yeah, it creates more tension between him and Themis, because actually he hates himself because he knows this is happening and this has been happening, and no one is able to save the people he's persuaded are still alive on this godforsaken planet. And so I think at some point I was thinking like, oh, I think Axel is gonna confront him and realize this and see right through him and go like, it's clear that you hate / blame someone, but I don't think it's Themis, because it's yourself, because it's you hate yourself for all of this. So I kind of really like that I've discovered a layer of complexity for one of my characters while I'm in this first phase of revisions, because that's exactly what revisions are supposed to be, and so far I've not been using them that way. I'm only doing very slow progress on taking notes on my tech and world building. That's it. So it's nice to then also uncover other plot ideas while I'm in there. I'm not finished yet. I am giving myself until the end of this month, and I should be okay to do it, because actually I go pretty quick once I get into it. I just have to push myself to do it is the issue. So I'm gonna try and do more this weekend, and I will keep you guys updated. So today is Saturday the 31st of January, which means it's the last day of the month, and I'm not done yet with all of my world building and tech notes. I technically transferred all of them on my Notion, which means I'm done with that part, but I did want to classify them and organize them in a way that makes sense, that makes them actually usable for when I'm entering revisions, and I would really like to enter revisions tomorrow, the 1st of February. So I did actually start the work of putting them together into pages that make more sense. I started with what's gonna end up being, I think, my biggest page, which is a page on space exploration inside of my world building, and that page has several sub headers. So we've got a toggle header called Rules and Protocols, in which I've got rules and politics of space exploration, safety protocols, spaceships and shuttles, and non-safety protocols, such as the goodbye messages that they have to record when they're on the ship and still within range of the satellites around Earth too. And then I have a second toggle header called ships, shuttles and FTL. Although I do talk about ships and shuttles in the other one, it's more about the rules regarding those, and this subchapter is containing things like the AI assistance that helps with landing and piloting the ships and shuttles, which ships have what, like med bays, medibots, and like medical facilities on board the ships. I have a specific page called the Carpathia, where I talk about things like what the bedrooms look like, the fact that there is a gym, the fact that there is a garden, because it's a bigger size ship. I have a subpage called Gates, where I talk about faster than light travel and light speed gates, essentially, and where I've also introduced the topic of stasis pods. So all of those tech-ish elements are in that page currently. And this is already, I'm checking now, 1,341 words, just this one long page with all of that information. And I still have so many notes that I have not classified yet. I think some of them are sort of useless and are just like reminders for me to make a decision surrounding some topics. So I might put them into a to be done page, like plot fixes and first aid page, where I will just make a note. For instance, the uniforms, I still have not really made a decision. I would like to enter revisions even if I don't have a full-on decision made, and I can sort of figure it out as I go. It's not urgent. And then finally, in my plot fixes page, which I did start during this month as I was trying to figure out some of my notes, I did add a section on the weapons that the crew can actually use against the infected, and I have decided to change slightly big plot points around that. So initially, when I decided Themis would have been on board with the idea of finding Infinex, the idea was that she was tempted by that concept because she herself had a minor form of cancer. But I feel like this topic is a bit sensitive, and there's a lot of things where I don't want to use it wrongly, and I don't want that concept to be something really heavy for some readers to read as well, and it's not something that is extremely important to the plot. It's just that I need her to have a reason why she would have joined the initial crew and the initial mission, and I wanted it to be close to her heart. This led to the whole plot point around realizing that the reason she wasn't getting infected is because she had radiation therapy, and that's the same reason Freddie wasn't getting infected, and that was because the substance itself was sensitive to X-rays and UV rays and like essentially radiation. I feel like this had a lot of plot holes that I was trying very, very hard to ignore at the time when I decided on this vague idea. And now that I'm at a stage where I'm trying to make notes of these different concepts and world build a little bit around what I was missing for my plot holes, I'm realizing that this doesn't work. And one of the reasons is that I don't think radiation stays in your body after you've had radiation therapy. That's a big one, and that would make it really hard to explain why they're not getting infected. But I liked the concept of UV rays and solar rays and the fact that the substance was born in an environment that doesn't get much sunlight, and so that it's sensitive to it. And because we're in a futuristic environment where I haven't put much detail and thought behind the whole idea that these people don't live on our original Earth but on Earth 2, which is a second planet, I kind of thought I could play around that and make it into something more sci-fi, and perhaps using less of a sensitive topic that I don't know much about myself, that would feel like using it for the wrong reasons. So instead I decided that maybe the ammunition that she brings with her is specifically solar energy powered weapons that can affect the infected, and that it would be something a little bit more sci-fi, that can actually harness like sort of the power of the sun or something. So I was thinking maybe an evolved form of photovoltaic bullets that convert sunlight into direct current electricity. It's a little bit of a loose idea at this point that I need to formulate a little bit better, but that's the idea. Maybe something that can be turned into a substance that can cover the bullets would be great. And then I was thinking I still want there to be a common thread between Themis, Freddy, but then also potentially the other people that they find that did not turn but instead died from being bitten. And I was thinking maybe the immunity comes from something to do with solar or gamma rays, because they came from Earth 2, which is a secondary planet and not the original planet that humans came from. Maybe by moving from a planet to a new planet, there's a gene that was passed down to people, and maybe it was a deficiency that led to some other new disease. A part of the population has old genes and another part has new ones that adapted to the new planet's environment. And some have to take a pill that helps them adapt and keep the needed vitamins in their bodies, etc. Okay guys, it is still Saturday, 31st of January, which means I am coming back to you with good news. I have officially finished classifying and organizing my world building and tech notes for Rules of Survival. It's currently 6:45 p.m. so clearly I have been at it for a couple hours at least. I think more than that, like 3 hours, but I'm done. I'm officially done. I don't have any more unclassified notes left, so everything has been put into a neat little gallery and everything has a spot. So here's what I have done. I have updated Earth 2 to include things about the two suns. I still need to figure out a name for my main city where all the big corporations and the government and the PEC are located. So I haven't done that, but that's next on my list, and I think naming something is not as important as deciding what happens there. I've also added in a section about the children of the sky, which was this concept around people who inherited genetic deficiencies from what I'm calling now the Great Earth Diaspora. So when their ancestors moved world from one Earth to another, and people born on those ships did not have access to the same UV lights and sun, and some developed deficiencies and do not have enough UV resistance to combat the fact that there's two suns on Earth 2 and their UV radiations. I'm very vague on that, and I still need to probably do a little bit more research because scientifically I don't think it makes perfect sense, and I kind of want to make it up a little bit more, but in a way that is realistic. So essentially I don't want it to be exactly something that already exists of people who have UV deficiencies, because I think that's a thing, but I do want it to be a little bit more sci-fi, if that makes sense. And I've added a small little section with just some basic culture and tech items I couldn't quite classify. I still have my vortex page, which I have not changed, and that might move as well. I was thinking of maybe putting it inside of Earth 2, but we'll see. I have a more developed Panacea and Ambrosia Alpha page. So Panacea is the planet, Ambrosia Alpha is the planetary settlement. And I have added a section on biometrics, a section on recordings and AI, a section on habitats, which a lot of them are quite short and they might get developed as I make up more things, but this is all I need for now. I've got something about the energy sources like generators, lights, water, etc. And then I have my big ass door section, which is the last one I worked on. And I've made some decisions around there. So I left some of my notes which were just relevant to specific passages in the book, but I've also made decisions after rereading my notes. So for instance, I've decided, here's a good example, that doors can be open in 3 ways. So you've got the automatic detection of someone approaching, also called sensor detection, sensor opening. You've got the door scanners that are next to the doors, and that requires someone to get closer and scan their chip, or maybe it's just a biometric read, but essentially they need to put their wrist near it. And then you have forcing the door opens at a distance, which can be done from the control room, so the engineer can do that, or a hacker could do this. And that way, I've then decided Themis, when she arrives, because she obviously knows what she knows from the first mission, tells Jones, the engineer, to deactivate the doors opening on approach, so to deactivate the sensor opening, and instead to only have opening on opening through scanners. Then later on, because there's a point where they watch the infected swarm the settlements and the doors are opening for them, I think this is a point where I need to make it clear that they think someone activated the sensor opening way of opening the doors. Then I have my substance section, which I just sorted out a little bit and added some notes. In fact, in particular, the notes around what it is sensitive to and how Themis decides to fight it using PV energy. And I decided she has something called PV70 covered bullets, which are essentially a new technology using PV technology, but that transforms that energy into a substance that can coat the bullets. Sounds completely unrealistic when I researched it, but I still want to do something like that, so I might change it slightly in terms of the naming convention or something, but in the meantime, that's the idea. I also have updated a little bit my weapons area. I just had some notes, and I think it's just for me to remember some details, like the fact that I named the smart gun that Axel brings, or that it's got a torchlight at the top, some things like that. And I need to make some decisions around what I'm calling the ammunition, how long it lasts, how many bullets one gun can hold. Like, I need to be more realistic about this, so I haven't made those decisions yet, but this feels like a slightly smaller decision to make, so I didn't feel like it was super important. But I have a spot to make it now. My biggest page is space exploration, which I might decide later on to split into several pages, but for now it's just this big one with 2 toggle subsections, so rules and protocols, and ships, shuttles, and FTL. I then have a lexicon page I had started earlier, which I might continue feeding into, but at the moment I haven't really used it that much. But for now I'm keeping it just in case. I have a mission eternity page, which I haven't changed from what it was before, but I've just added an image and everything to make it part of the rest and of the ensemble. I might put it at the end. I have a bots and augmented humans page, which is mostly just bullet points of the type of bots I have named and used in the book, the types of enhancements that mercs and other people with augmentations can have. And I've got a medical page, which literally has 2 bullet points, but just in case I need a space for them, I feel like it's quite easy to find it again if I know where it is. I've got the medipatch and the medibot stuff in there. I might just add details about medbay as well in there. I've got a communication page where I did gather a few images to try and figure out what I could picture the wrist comms to look like. And I quite like both ways. One way that's a little bit more retro futuristic, that just basically looks like a transparent tablet that's inserted into a slot and stays there, but you could take it out. It's a little bit Expanse-like. So the TV show The Expanse has these phones that are just complete transparent tablets. And I feel like it would be more what I have been picturing while writing the book, but I also really like this concept of it being just a much thinner, more practical wristband that can overlay on top of the person's skin or their clothes and become a touch screen, but it's like a projection. So I like both ideas and I may need to make a decision on it. I don't think it's super necessary right now, but I have written any bullet points I had about it. I have a mercenary tech page, and it's literally just some bullet points about stuff that I decided, and a lot of it is developed by this big corporation that's a rival to Vortex and is called Maxwell Sensu, which is another one I might rename because I feel like it's a little bit too similar to some other names like in the Alien franchise, just because it's a double barrel name that also has an Asian sounding name in one of the two of the double barrel. So I might change it, but for now that's what it's called. And that's it. That's actually it. Yeah, I was like, do I have any more pages? No, this is it. This is all the pages that I've got. And we are done, and we are now ready for revisions because I have enough information to actually start thinking about any plot changes and quick fixes. I also did update some notes on my first aid page. For instance, I added a bullet point about uniforms because I haven't made a decision about this, and I think I need to go on Pinterest, gather some ideas that are more visual. So for now, all I did was make notes of the pages and chapters where I mentioned anything to do with clothing that is not consistent with each other. So that's another one that, again, I'm kind of delaying fixing a lot of these things, let's be honest. But I still think that I've got enough to start. Because the main things I needed fixed in order to fix my plot problems have been fixed and have been decided. So anything else is like decorative in a way. It's just sort of like flourish or things that make things seem more realistic but aren't an essential part of the plot itself or driving the plot itself. So I'm happy enough with everything I've got now, and a lot of these other small details I can decide on the go in the middle of revisions for draft 2. So here we are. I think we're now ready for February and for revisions towards draft 2. I have also decided on a vague deadline. I have said to my critique partners and potential beta readers that I've considered for draft 2 that I'm going to attempt to get this ready for June. But it could be beginning or end of June. I'm not quite decided on that yet. I just feel like if I'm starting in February, so it would be February, March, April, May, potentially the whole month of June. So it's either 4 or 5 months, depending on how life goes and how much I'm able to move forward with this second draft. It might end up not needing as much as I think. It might end up needing more changes than I think. So to be fair, it's all up in the air and I need to just get started to know. So here we are. I feel like June is a respectable deadline. So that will be probably in the next episode. So on that note, I hope you are still enjoying this journey and me vlogging my entire Rules of Survival writing journey. If you do, please leave a like so I know, and consider subscribing to my channel because there will obviously be more of the same. And see you guys in the next one.